1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Welcome, everybody. We are back with an all-new episode of Star Wars Reactions. We are so excited. Missed everybody last week. We'll get in that in a minute, but we are back and we are excited. I am stoked. If you know me, you've seen my social media lately. You know I am itching to discuss this episode, one of these episodes in particular. But it's going to be a double header here on Star Wars Reactions, so let's not delay any at all. My name is Aaron Harris. I am one of your hosts here, and joining me, as always, he is the Cody to my Obi-Wan Kenobi, the David Motters. David, brother, what's up?
Oh man, we got a lot to cover. I'm excited. I'm ready to react, and and I'm so excited to cover, like you said, an episode that I know that you're particularly fond of, and I was excited for you. I'm excited for all of us Star Wars fans, but particularly for you, buddy. And so yeah, ready to react and looking forward to it.
Awesome. Same here, my friend. Same here. We are going to have a great episode. I want to take a moment to at least say, apologize for not releasing an episode last week. Between my day job, it just got hectic with, we were both live in Central Florida. So we were under the gun of Hurricane Elsa, which fortunately we both came through fine. Thank goodness. We dodged a bullet on that one, but I know some people in North Florida didn't. So, our thoughts and prayers go out to them. But my day job working, just had me tied up a lot with Elsa. So I was free to record, but I was absolutely exhausted. and David was gracious to push it off till this week. So, but we're here and we're going to cover 2 episodes of the Bad Batch, Common Ground, and Devil's Deal. Devil's Deal. So, but before we do that, David, everything going good on your end?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, like you said on social media, I've started on Instagram. I've been late to the party, but I wanted to get going on that, and I've enjoyed it so far. And if some of our listeners have seen it, I need to follow them, and hopefully they'll follow back and all that kind of jazz. But I posted some pictures from Galaxy's Edge. I went on Sunday last minute with my son. He'd never been there, and I've been there with you, buddy, and want to get back there again. But I'd really wanted to get Eli there, and he was excited because his buddies have talked about it. But it was really fun. Went there for a few hours and rode Smuggler's Run, and we had a good time with that. And what else did we do? Had blue and green milk, and also had. We were there kind of in the afternoon, so we went for dinner, and we went to Docking Bay 7 and had Ronto wraps, which I love, and my son just absolutely loved them. He wants to make them at home, so we
have to let me know how they turn out.
Yeah. We even snuck over to Toy Story Land because he wanted to ride Toy Story Mania. He's loved that forever since he was a little kid. So we went over there real fast, came back to Galaxy's Edge, and walked around, really kind of took it in, and then buzzed home. So if our listeners look for me, David Motters, on Instagram, just follow, and I'll follow you right back. And
yeah,
everything going good. Everything going good here, buddy.
Excellent. And we had that's a play. I know Story Mania has always been a favorite of mine too at Hollywood Studios, because I remember during Star Wars weekends, get there nice and early, get our autograph tickets. Then as soon as the rope dropped, which is the official opening of the park, we would rush in as fast as we could, get over to Toy Story Mania, because that was, at the time, that was the ride with the longest wait time. It was always an hour or two. So we ran back. We'd always run back to Toy Story Mania and get a fast pass.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once we had our fast pass, then we'd go over to Ryder Shop, get a cinnamon roll, grab a Coke, and just chill.
Charge phones. Yes.
Yes. And yes. And it was, great days. And Toy Story Mania is just always so much fun.
Oh.
We got they made a Wii game out of that, right?
No, I don't have a Wii, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, they actually made a Toy Story Mania Wii game, which you're going around doing pretty much exactly what you're doing in the ride, and we got that. We played it. It's just not the same. It's fun. It's very physical. Oh my gosh. Very physical, because it's a Wii, so you could stand up, move around and stuff. But it was just being at Disney, at Hollywood Studios, on Toy Story. I mean, there's nothing like it, my man. Nothing like it.
Well, and here's the thing. I had not been to Disney's Hollywood Studios since September of 2019. I did not go at all in 2020, just, because of COVID and all that kind of stuff. And so it was nice to get back there. And, so like I said, send a few pictures. I took the picture under the Bad Batch banners, where you and I think we've taken pictures there before. It's kind of more by Star Wars Launch Bay. And,
yes.
So I posted that picture on Twitter. I kind of like the idea of the Bad Batch looking over my shoulder. Kind of felt like they were looking out for me, looking over. So,
absolutely.
So, yeah. And that was right at the end of the night. In fact, that's why there was nobody there. If people notice in the picture, there's no one behind me, because it was at 8:20. And I said, Eli, hey, come on over here, take a picture of me right here. And he did real fast. And then we just walked out and, like I said, buzzed home and worked on Monday. So
pretty cool. I know I did go once in 2020. It was later 2020, with Robbie, my friend Robbie.
Right. Yes.
And we went, and it was me, Robbie, and it was his daughter was with us too. His daughter went with us, and we had a blast. Had to wear a mask and everything because of the whole COVID thing, because that was still in place at that time. But it was so much fun. It's the first time I had been since Rise of the Resistance had opened. Okay, let me phrase that. It was the only time I had been since Rise of the Resistance opened. Was not able to secure a boarding pass, which bummed me out, but we had a blast. It was because the last time I had been, was with you when we went with Jason and Sarah for the cast member preview of Galaxy's Edge. And we literally stayed in Galaxy's Edge. We went nowhere else.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah. And by the way, just a little information for our listeners. When I was walking my son around, I was pointing out everything, because again, you and I've walked through it together. I said, hey, Eli, come here. I asked the person, I said, back in there is Savi's workshop, workshop, and where you can build your own lightsabers. And I was just asking the guy about, reservations and all that. And he said, yeah, that you can do it up to 60 days out. But there's openings and stuff. But he says, we've been pretty busy, he said. Spots fill up and people go in. And I said, is it still about $200? Because I know it was that 2 years ago when it opened in 2019. And he says, well, actually, it's up to $219 to build a lightsaber in there. So the price has gone up since the park opened, but not surprising with everything in the country going up. But it's pretty wild. And in fact, one other piece of information I'd share with our listeners is I wanted Eli to go in and see, Doc Ondar. So we when Dan did his walkthrough for Coffee with Kenobi, there was a line to get in to Doc Ondar's. right there at the end of June, just the day before you and I saw him at Disney Springs, Dan Zare from Coffee with Kenobi.
Yeah.
When Eli and I were there was no line to get into Doc Honors. They're like, no, you can walk right in. But there was a line to look at and get legacy lightsabers in there. And of course, when you and I went in August of 19, with that cast member preview, you and I took pictures. I took one of you took one of me. And what was so nice is you and I were able to really kind of hold a lot of the legacy lightsabers, turn them on and have fun with them. But they had a line there specifically. It was outside, and then there was one inside. And Eli and I were just walking around and just looking at, holocrons, Sith holocrons and Jedi holocrons and crystals and all that. But yeah, there was a line for people to buy them. So clearly the Savvy's Workshop, where you can build your own lightsaber, or going into Doc Ondar's, where you can purchase legacy lightsabers, incredibly popular, even though the cost is up there. So pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. It is pretty cool. I heard something about the prices going up. I want to say middle of 2020s when it it was right after they reopened. They may have reopened with the increased price. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, but still, $20 more. From what I have not done it, but from what I understand, it's quite the experience. So, if you haven't done it, from what I understand, the experience just in and of itself makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, Dan Zare says it is. Jason Brain, our buddy who works there, says it is. And I very much want to do it. I'd love to do it with you if we went in together and built lightsabers and did that. That'd be a lot of fun, buddy.
Exactly. It would be. So yeah, it's fun over there. It is definitely fun over there. So I'm glad you got to go. I'm glad Eli got to go for the first time. I didn't realize he hadn't been before.
No, but I went with you, and then I went one time at the end of September, and then and didn't go the rest, into December and all of last year. So that was my first time, in a park in quite a long time, which is fine. It was fun to be back. It was fun to be back. Yeah. Understand. So, all right. Well, let's get going into a little bit into some Star Wars news of what's going on around Star Wars. Of course, one thing it's not in the show notes, and we didn't discuss it before we recorded, but apparently StarWars.com made an announcement yesterday, I believe it was, based on, because Funko's having their own convention coming up. Of course, the Funko Pop bobblehead things are pretty cool if you are into those type of things. And they released a couple years ago, back when Rebels was going, several Rebels pieces. Then Rebels got canceled, and they had announced like 6 more Rebels ones they were going to release. But after Rebels got canceled and ended, those pieces got canceled. Well, for the Funko convention that's coming up at the beginning of August, they have announced that they're making 2 Star Wars ones for convention exclusives. One of them is Rey, which is another Rey, pretty cool. But they are releasing from that canceled Rebels line the Imperial Super Commando. Oh my gosh.
The all white Mandalorian, the white, almost like white stormtrooper armor Mandalorian that worked for Gar Saxon.
Yeah.
The Imperial Super. They're releasing it in the Rebels. The Rebels, once they released for Rebels, had specific design boxes with the Rebels logo and everything. It's being released in one of those boxes.
Oh my gosh. That's cool, man.
I am going to go crazy trying to get that ordered. I have every Rebels one they released. Okay. I have the ones the Ghost Crew. I have they did a chase one of Sabine. I got that one. Then they did there were 2 that came in back when they were doing the Smuggler's Bounty subscription boxes. There was a Rebels box for that, and I got the two pops from there. There was the Inquisitors they had released that were exclusive or at different stores. I got my hands on those. The Grand Inquisitor, the brother and the sister. So I got them all, and now they're releasing another one. So now I got to hunt it down. So
well, I know you will.
Where there's a will, there's an Aaron that's going to find a way.
That's right.
All right. So I thought that was pretty cool and thought we would share that. I also wanted to go into some huge news that was announced today. And it literally, when it popped up on my phone, it literally blew my mind. I could not believe what I was reading. The Emmy nominations came out, which it's award season. You know, the nominations are going to come out. But the surprising to me, which it not surprised me because the show was so good, but The Mandalorian led the pack with the most Emmy nominations.
That's
24 nominations for The Mandalorian in this year's Emmys.
Jeez.
And these are great awards. I mean, they're including Outstanding Drama Series. The Emmy they're nominated for Outstanding Drama Series. There are 2 nominations for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series. It's Carl Weathers as Grief Karga.
Yeah.
And Timothy Oliphant as Cobb Vanth.
Nice.
Both of them nominated. Then, of course, Giancarlo Esposito, who Moff Gideon, was nominated for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series.
Nice.
That's 2 guest stars and 1 supporting actor there. They were also nominated. I just want to read through these because 24 nominations, that's something to be proud of. That's incredible. I mean, that's like Sopranos level nominations there.
Oh. Yeah.
They also walked away with nominations for Outstanding Musical Composition for a Series, Original Dramatic Score, Outstanding Prosthetic Makeup, Outstanding Period or Character Hairstyling, Outstanding Fantasy or Sci-Fi Costumes, Outstanding Single Camera Picture Editing for a Drama Series, Outstanding Cinematography for a Single Camera Series, half hour, Outstanding Single Camera Picture Editing for a Drama Series, period, Outstanding Writing for a Drama Series, Outstanding Single Camera Picture Editing for a Drama Series, Outstanding Writing for a Drama Series, Outstanding Single Camera Picture Editing for a Drama Series. That feels like these are specific by chapter. So certain episodes are nominated. So Single Picture Editing for a Drama Series, Chapter 15, The Believer. Again for Chapter 13, The Jedi. Outstanding Writing for a Drama Series is Chapter 16, The Rescue. Chapter 13, The Jedi. Here's another Outstanding Single Camera Picture Editing for a Drama Series. Chapter 11, The Heiress. Outstanding Stunt Performance for Chapter 16, The Rescue. Outstanding Directing for a Drama Series for Chapter 9, The Marshal. That was directed by Jon Favreau. Outstanding Stunt Coordination for The Mandalorian in general. Ryan Watson was the stunt coordinator. Outstanding Cinematography for a Single Camera Series, 1 hour, Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian, The Jedi. Baz Idioni was Director of Photography. Outstanding Special Visual Effects in a Season or Movie for The Mandalorian. And it's the whole visual effects producers, supervisors, it lists everybody. I'm not even going to try to read all those names. Outstanding casting for a drama series. Sarah Halley Finn was the casting director. Outstanding mixing for a comedy or drama series, 1 hour, looking at chapter 13, The Jedi. Outstanding production design for a narrative, period, or fantasy program, 1 hour or more. Again, chapter 13, The Jedi. You realize most of these are chapter 13, The Jedi. That's the Ahsoka episode, isn't it?
Right. It is.
Okay. Let's see. Outstanding sound editing for a comedy or drama series, 1 hour, chapter 13, The Jedi. That group's, see, that's a well-rounded group right there. That's Matt Wood, David Accord. It's a good group of sound editors there. And that actually is the last one. That's all 24 of them, man. That is outstanding. Congratulations to the cast and crew of The Mandalorian, to everybody who's worked on the show, for just simply having that many nominations. It's incredible. And here's hats off, fingers crossed that they bring them home too.
Yeah. Well, as Star Wars fans, we've always been frustrated with the Academy Awards and other award shows that really tend to not want to look at Star Wars and really give it a fair shake at times. So to see that many nominations, like you said, at Sopranos level, that what a testament to that show and to the creators. And like you said, congrats to all of them, and fingers crossed, and the force is with them that they will bring home a bunch of them.
Absolutely. I definitely hope they do. It's, with as many nominations they have, I definitely hope they bring some of them home. Several of them. It would be a travesty if they didn't bring any home. So here's hoping they do. So we'll see. I don't even know when are the Emmys this year. September 19th. There they are. September 19th, they'll be airing on CBS. So we'll have to wait a little bit, find out who's bringing it home, but we will see. And of course, when the winners are announced, we'll let you know who brought what home. And if Mandalorian bring them home, we will definitely let you know. All right. So with that, we've taken up enough time there. We just got so much good stuff to talk about. We're doing a double header this week. If you missed that earlier in the show, double header. We're going to be talking Common Ground and Devil's Deal, the last 2 episodes of the Bad Batch with Chopper, and it's going to be a great discussion. I promise you, I will try to stay focused, especially when we start talking Devil's Deal. I can't promise I won't go off on a Chopper tangent. Is my voice changing when I say his name?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I love that droid. Oh my God, I love that droid. So we're going to have a great one. But before we jump into our reviews, we're going to take just a real brief break, and we will be right back with you. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here, and we are jumping into our discussions on the Bad Batch now. We are going to, like I said, we're doing a double header. So we are going to start with the first episode that we didn't get to discuss last week, which of course was Common Ground. This episode was released on Disney Plus on July 2nd, 2021, written by Grisman Sandu and directed by Saul Ruiz. This episode was the 10th episode of the season, and in this episode, the Bad Batch go on a mission for Sid they really don't want to go on, and it's to help a separatist senator, Avi Singh, imprisoned by the Imperials. They leave Omega with Sid because Hunter feels it would be too dangerous. That's a first. Hunter and Wrecker, Tech and Echo, head to the planet Raxus to rescue the senator. Meanwhile, Sid learns Omega's knack for strategy and cuts a deal to help scam people at the Dajaric table. Clone Force 99 successfully rescues their target, while Omega raises so much money through her earnings and her winnings, she has not only paid off the debt the Bad Batch owed to Sid. The episode ends with Hunter sitting down for a game of Dajaric with Omega, and if she wins, she will never be left out of a mission again. And that is how the episode ends. So, David, what were your initial thoughts when you saw Common Ground, my friend?
Oh, definitely. And again, if people have listened to one of the most recent, on the main show of Coffee with Kenobi, Dan had me on, Dan Zare did, and we covered this episode. And so, my thoughts are the same on this, that I'm watching this entire episode on Raxus, and the first thought in my mind is, you're all too late. The Republic and the Separatists, it doesn't matter. Palpatine has already has all of them in his grip, and you and I know, Aaron, it won't be until Rogue One and Episode 4 that the rebellion, they'll start to turn the tide. But right now, it's just starting to tighten their grip. But I will say this, the animation, seeing the trees, the lighting, the battle scenes with those ATTEs, they're all incredible. I admit, I liked the previous two episodes with Cad Bane and Fennec Shand slightly more than this. Although, again, if you listen to that Coffee with Kenobi episode, Tom Gross does an incredible job of convincing me that I think I like this episode much more, particularly because of the last maybe 5 minutes. In terms of what happens once they get back to Sid's parlor and stuff like that. But I did enjoy it. I still go back and forth. I love the bounty hunter action with Cad Bane and Fennec Shand. But I was curious to see at the end of that episode, with their debt paid off, if the Bad Batch would stand Ord Mantell or not. But also, one little side note in terms of initial thoughts, I did like that droid, very much based on a Death Star droid named GS8, and I thought that was a pretty cool droid who was pretty impressed with our good guys. So those are just some of my initial thoughts.
Very good, very good. Great thoughts. And I did catch that episode of Coffee with Kenobi. It was very good. I actually got to say that first time in a long time. I've said it like that. For those of you that are new to the show, and David, this show has its origins with Coffee with Kenobi. That's why we mention him so much. We go way back with Dan Z over at Coffee with Kenobi. The previous iterations of this show, Resistance Reactions and Rebels Reactions, were part of the Coffee with Kenobi network, and we eventually we all just split off and went our own ways, and that's where Star Wars Reactions was born. There's your brief history. So yes, that was a great episode. I was very happy you got to do that with Dan, and it was a great discussion and very in depth. And I love how Dan was making up his own psychology terms for you. Right. That was pretty sweet. That was the David Motters syndrome. Was that what he called it?
Motters effect.
David Motters effect. That was it.
Dan coined it. Yes.
So Dan coined that one. I like that one. I'm going to have to keep that one tucked in the back of my head and bring that up every so often. But yeah, to me, this was a fun episode. I really enjoyed this episode. It was one that when I watched it initially, I'm like, okay, this was good. But after I watched it a second and a third time, I was like, man, there's a lot jammed into this little small episode that means a lot. And I really enjoyed that when they put stuff in there that subtly affects the story, and it's playing on people's convictions and beliefs, and they do that a lot in this episode, and I'm glad they did. It makes you think, and I love that about this episode. So let's go in and hit on a few talking points here. Let's talk about how they get the mission. And they are at Sid's. Sid tells them she has a mission for them. They're going to go. It's not like they have much of a choice because they owe Sid so much. They're going to go do the mission, and it ends up being to rescue this senator, the separatist senator on Raxus. And of course, they're clones, and Echo is even a reg who's now part of the Bad Batch. And there's immediately a negative reaction to that. And you're like, no. They're separatists. We don't help separatists. And Sid's like, well, you're going to help whoever pays you and whoever I tell you to. So they reluctantly go on that mission. And we see that conflict throughout the episode inside that the Bad Batch are wrestling with. It's not coming, and it's surprisingly you didn't see that kind of the conflict coming from the senator or anything. It was mostly from Clone Force 99. We're not allies, you're separatists, you're the bad guy, you're who we've been fighting, you're evil, it's up to us, we just let you die type of mentality. They don't want to be there. They don't want to help them. I think even at one point during the episode, they said, I always wanted to be on Raxus, but not like this, because, they figured they would be invading Raxus. So it made it that type of conflict where they're wrestling with doing the job, but dealing with their own personal prejudices, I would say. What did you think of that, David?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It is a fascinating thing to ask these clones to go there and help a separatist senator, because they've been battling them and battling the clankers throughout the Clone Wars. Something that I thought about with Echo and his immediate opposition to doing this, and the emotions and feelings he had there. Again, I've talked about this with you in the psychology corner as, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And, immediately, you think to what happened to Echo in the Clone Wars, and what we end up seeing in season 7, last year. What do we see? We see our good guys, the Bad Batch, rescue him from Skako Minor, and from the Techno Union, and they literally pull him out of that machine. And I was just thinking back to when you and I covered that, Aaron. I remember the visuals. They looked like kind of like that when did Metropolis come out? That old black and white science fiction, 1929, 1930, And even now, Echo still has a bit of that look with the things on his head and so on. But he has, a visceral reaction to it because of what the separatists did to him. And so I am impressed that he went on this versus completely refusing to go. But yeah, it's very understandable that they all struggle with it, but particularly Echo.
Exactly, especially since they're going to the capital of the separatist union. Raxus was the capital world of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, aka the Separatists. So this was a place that we originally saw during the Clone Wars in the episode Heroes on Both Sides, but it was a different part of the planet we saw at this point, and it was very unique to see this story. It is a very beautiful planet too. It's the exact opposite of what you would expect the capital to be. We see Coruscant as the capital of the Republic, and eventually the capital of the Empire, and it's just a scathing city, planet-wide city with skyscraper built on top of skyscraper, and you can't even see the ground because everything just towers up into the sky. This place has forests and trees, and it's beautiful, more of like Naboo than anything.
Yes, agreed. Very beautiful. Very beautiful.
So very nice. Which leads me to a point it's not in the show notes, but I wanted to bring up. This was very well animated. The landscaping and everything was probably the best I've seen so far.
Oh, the leaves look real. I mean, the lighting and the leaves, I keep feeling like every episode they're upping it. And even in the next one that we're going to cover, I feel like they upped it even more. And you're like, how do they keep doing this?
Oh, absolutely. It's the animation team, and it's a wonder, you see Mandalorian get nominated for all these Emmys. Where's Bad Batches? I guess that would be next year, though, is when they would be eligible at this point. But if they don't get nominated for animation, it'll be a travesty for animation and for music, because Kiner's killing it.
Oh, yeah.
So, so stunning work there. We also, of course, find out something I've been arguing for all season. We actually see, Hunter decide to leave Omega behind because it's too dangerous. Have I not been preaching that since day one?
You have, no question.
And he does. And guess what? Everybody lives. Nobody got hurt. It worked.
Now, Aaron, the thing that I was thinking about is, again, you and I have talked about it before when, they were on that moon, and it was an Ordo moon dragon or something like that. I believe I'm saying it. But, going down into those caves and kind of spelunkering around. And I remember you were like, there's no way I would let a son or a daughter go in there, and so on and so forth. And here's Hunter actually catching up to what you were saying back at the beginning of the season. Now, it is interesting, and you did mention this in the synopsis for the show, that at the end, they're playing a game at the Jarek, and if she wins, she gets to go on missions again. So you remember what I've said? I've said suspension of disbelief. Kind of got to go with it. And she wants to be part of the crew. At the same time, you and I are both dads. And so we do think about these things. But yeah.
Well, for the longest time, they've told her, she's a member of the team. She's a member of the crew. She's a member of the team. So, yeah, they're going to, there's going to be that debate whether she gets to go or not. But they've been in a lot more dangerous situations than this and have taken her. And he decides to leave her behind. And I wonder if that just has to do with the fact that it's a separatist planet. And he just doesn't want to expose her to the separatists.
Yeah, I think in that one, absolutely a no-brainer. Just crawling with Imperials, it's a double whammy for him, for Hunter. So, of course, I think it was the right decision and the safest decision. And like you said, they didn't have to worry. They could focus on their mission and not worry about making sure she was safe as well.
Exactly. So, and of course, because she's left behind, we get to see an interesting relationship actually begin to bud, I would say, between her and Sid, believe it or not. If I was going to leave my kid behind, Sid probably wouldn't have been the first choice, but hey, you leave him with who you got, I guess. Who's better to leave your kid with than a bartender who's trying to hustle you for jobs and stuff. So
sure.
But yeah, they leave her with Sid, and Sid is playing Dejarik with a couple of the patrons and ends up not doing that well and is struggling, and Omega lends her voice to help Sid, and they end up discovering that, she's like, I love strategy. It's a strategy game. I love strategy. So they make a deal. They cut a deal. And I love how she cut the deal in this. It's crazy because they're like, when she's like, you should play. We can make a lot. And Omega's first question is not whether I should, not should I or not. It's what's my cut?
Yeah, he's quick.
Tell me you've hung around a gambling facility too much without telling me you've hung around a gambling facility. What's my cut? And I love it because Sid offers her, what was it, 30% initially? It was like 30%, and Omega's like, nah, 60. not how about not, well, can we go up to 60? It's just flat out 60.
Yeah.
And there it begins from there. She starts playing Dejarik, and obviously does very well, because we find out at the end that she is made enough to actually take charge of the clear the Hunter and the crew's debt to Sid. So which now makes everything they do for Sid, just bonus money for them at that point. It's there, they can actually start saving up to get away from Sid if they choose to. So one other thing I wanted to touch on from this episode is we see a transition in this episode when it comes to looking at clones. And we've for years we've watched the Clone Wars, and we've focused in on the Clone Wars, and we've loved the clones, Captain Rex, Cody, all of them that we grew up watching. Some of us grew up more than others watching them, and it's we always had this view of the clones, and now they're the bad guys. So we've taken the good guys and made them the bad guys. And we see a distinct reaction to the clones from Clone Force 99. I mean, these clones are shooting to kill them, and the Clone Force 99 is stunning them.
Right.
And they're not wanting to hurt their brothers. They're stunning everybody, not just the clones, but the Imperial officers too.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mentioned in our last episode when you and I recorded that I think within the day or two before our last time recording, I sat down, I'm like, you know what? I want to watch the end of season 7 again. And you and I covered it again. People can go back and listen to those episodes. But it was called Victory and Death. And in watching it, what you see is obviously Ahsoka helps Rex get the chip out. And then you see them trying to escape that Republic cruiser. And there's a scene where they can stop. They're in the hangar, and Ahsoka is looking at Rex, and she's saying, look, Rex, I can't kill these guys, and similar to what we're seeing in this episode. And Rex is like, oh, by the way, Ahsoka, they're shooting to kill. And she goes, I know that, I just can't do it. And so Rex set his blasters to stun. And in watching that again, it's a year ago, and a lot of people haven't watched it recently. But Ahsoka and Rex take the same tact, and all the clones are shooting to kill Ahsoka and Rex. Ahsoka is deflecting every blaster bolt off, not returning it back to them to kill them, and Rex is shooting stun the whole time because, those are his brothers. And of course, what Rex knows is what the Bad Batch knows in this episode, which is, they're looking at their clone brothers, and they know that they have that chip in them. So it makes a lot of sense to me that they're doing that, and I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, we see Ahsoka and Rex doing it in the final episode of the Clone Wars last season. Very good, true, and it definitely makes you think about what, as they're
going on these missions and having to deal with the Empire, why the type of feelings they're dealing with, because being a special forces group like they were, they probably fought side by side with a lot of these guys, a lot of these clones, so they know them. It makes you wonder how many of them they know, and of course they can't tell they know them because they're all now in the clean white armor. They're not decorated and stuff like they were during the Clone Wars, where each unit colored their armor different. These are all plain straight clones at that point. So
Okay.
it's definitely something to wrestle with. You never know if the person you're shooting is somebody you shared a meal with in the middle of a battlefield, or whether it's somebody you never met. So
Yeah.
very interesting. So, all right. Any missed points on this episode that you wanted to talk about, David?
Just, something that's interesting to me is, this idea of Omega and the Kaminoans wanting her and her value. And of course, in this, we hear Sid, who is this, huge player in the underground in the Star Wars galaxy, say that she hasn't seen anything like Omega's strategy abilities. And so I wrote in the show notes to myself, what do I make of Omega's skill or talent, right, of strategy? And I asked the question, is it enough to, quote unquote, save the Kaminoans' contract with the Empire? And, this is an interesting thing. We're being pulled forward. And are we interested in this? Because I thought, what? Wait, I'm going to go to the Star Wars book, and it's authored by our good buddy Dan Zare. And I went to the section on the Kaminoans, and I looked at the last sentence, and I wrote it in the show notes. Let me do quote. After the establishment of the Empire, the Kaminoan cloning facilities are closed for business. Unquote. Okay, so now we all knew this, right? We don't, we know they go over to conscripted soldiers. But what struck me, Aaron, is that just like with season 7, like we know where this is going. We know Order 66 is coming. Dave Filoni and these creatives are able to pull me in even when I know what's coming. It's the same thing here. Even though, we know that the Kaminoans get shut down and their contract is not continued, I'm still interested. I mean, how does this play out? And of course, we don't have the full establishment of the Empire. It's beginning. They're showing it right now. I'm still interested, even though we know that Omega's skills don't save the Kaminoans' contract with the Empire. So that was just something that I was thinking about as this episode unfolded. So just something for our listeners to think about.
Very good. Very good. Great discussion there. Final thoughts on this episode on Common Ground. This was just a fun episode. I really liked it. It was a lot of depth, a lot of emotion. And it told a lot of story, and it explored the prejudices between the clones and the separatists. It explored the Bad Batch's view and of the clones that they're fighting and running from, and how they aren't interested in hurting them, and then just the relationship between Hunter and Omega is explored again. It just was so much. To me, this was, even though there was a lot of action in this episode, to me this was very much a character piece when it comes down to it, because we got to see a lot of in-depth, although it was handled subtly, a lot of in-depth internal wrestling by everybody, and I loved it. It made it very interesting for me. So, if of course, David, how about your final thoughts?
Yeah, you know, and I really want to piggyback off what you said right there, about the more of a character piece, you know, because that's, you know, that's really what, you know, Tom Gross, like I said, CWK newsman and now CWK psychologist, was saying when we were recording. You know, I initially had you know, not really liked this episode as much as the previous two, again with Fennec Shand, Cat Bane. But, you know, he made a really strong argument for, you know, the relationship between Hunter and Omega, really how Wrecker gives a slight shoulder shrug to Hunter to kind of convey, hey, you know, just lighten up. She's doing fine. And so on and so forth. I would encourage anybody, again, go back, listen to the end of that, because the argument that Tom Gross makes, he really convinced me to go from an initial, what I had in my mind, grade of B. I bumped it up to an A-. And again, consistent with what he said, but also with what you just said, Aaron, in terms of kind of the development of the characters there a bit more. And so again, just that's my grade. I enjoyed it, and I think I enjoyed it more each time that I watched it.
Very good. Very good. So what we are going to do, of course, you know, everybody, we do grade our episodes and let you know what we feel and what we thought about them via grades. We are going to grade the episode. We're going to hold it to the end of all of our discussions today, and we'll grade both common. I just blanked on the name.
Okay.
Common Ground and Devil's Deal together. So you'll have to keep listening to find out how we would grade it. So stay tuned. What we're going to do real quick, though, is we are going to take a quick break. Then we will be back, and we're actually going to start part 2 of our discussion today, which is looking at Devil's Deal. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We are continuing our discussion today. Like I said, we had our double header, and it is time for part 2 of this double header, Star Wars Reaction Week, where we're going to start looking at the Devil's Deal. Devil's Deal. This episode was released on July 9th, 2021. Directed by Stuart Lee and written by Tamara Batcher Wilkerson, my favorite writer as of this episode. I will go ahead and forewarn everybody. I probably will not stay, focused much on this discussion because of the content. So, not because it's bad content, just because it's Chopper. So be prepared, and I apologize up front. So in this episode, the takes place on the planet of Ryloth. We see the Imperials with Cham Syndulla, Eleni Syndulla, his wife, and Orn Free Ta, the senator to the senator from Ryloth to the Senate, the Galactic Senate, with Rampart as they discuss the future of Ryloth, and convincing the people to accept the rule of the Empire and to go to work in the processing plants and stuff, to lay down their weapons and accept the protection of the clones who they have fought side by side with for years. And of course, when Orn Free Ta gets up there, he is booed. But the next thing you know, out walks Cham Syndulla, gives his speech, and everybody loves him, cheers him, and they're pretty much half accepting it, except for Cham's second in command, Gobi Glee, who you'll recognize from the Clone Wars, who is not fond of things. Things unfortunately get out of hand because the Empire does have a plan to, because they don't trust the Syndulas. So they have a plan to use Orn Frita to, bring down the Cham's network of fighters. And unfortunately, Cham and Eleni's daughter gets drawn into the mix on it. And we have the return of the child version of the pilot of the Ghost, Hera Syndulla, in this episode. So Hera, as a child, is seen in this, running around with the greatest astromech ever to grace a Star Wars movie or TV show, a.k.a. the C-110P chopper. Okay, see, I told you I was going to get distracted. I can't even make it through the synopsis right now. Anyway, things get out of hand when Hera ends up going off with Gobi on a quote-unquote supply run, and they fly to one of the orbiting planets on Ryloth, where they meet up with, you got it, Clone Force 99, who is bringing them weapons that Sid is selling them. So they're now weapons dealers now. And of course they take the weapons, they return to Ryloth, and believe it or not, that's the only time we see Clone Force 99 in this episode. So things get out of hand when they return. The Empire shows up, takes down the ship, and ends up taking Hera and everybody into custody. Cham and Eleni show up to try to rescue rescue Hera, and they end up rescuing Hera and sending her off with our favorite astromech droid Chopper, who drives off in the speeder. But unfortunately, Crosshair is his devious self, is hiding in place, shoots free Ornta, and of course it gets framed on the Syndullas, who are taken into custody, and that's pretty much where the episode ends, with them being arrested. So, yeah. So what were your initial thoughts on this episode, David? Because I think everybody pretty much knows what mine was.
I know you were disappointed. Not. Yeah, watching this, I was just like, wow. And really more like, I was excited, but I was even more excited for you, when Chopper and Hera appeared, because, anyone who's listened to our show over the last several years knows, your love for Chopper. And so, I do, I get excited for fellow Star Wars fans to be excited for Star Wars. I really do. And so with you, I'm even more so excited because of your love of Rebels, your love of Chop, of Hera and the whole Rebels crew. And so, that we talk about all the negativity that's occurred in Star Wars over the years. That's the stuff I focus on, sharing it with, that shared enjoyment and excitement like that you have at Celebration or at these different, Comic-Cons and stuff like that. But so for me, truly and honestly, it was just being excited for you. I mean, here we get brand new, original content for, Hera and Cham and Chopper. Just incredible. Beyond, my excitement, I'm excited to see these characters because, again, you and I covered them in Rebels, and I love Rebels and the whole series. And so, but I would say beyond that, the story was really cool. The animation was incredible, and I do mean incredible. I mentioned that a little bit when we were covering the last episode there, Common Ground, but it's even better in this, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in my final thoughts. But and of course, we're left with the classic Saturday morning serial ending, leaving us, wanting for more. When we see Hera, like you said, being driven off by Chopper in that speeder. Here we are, going, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? I'm worried about Cham. I'm worried about Eleni. I haven't seen her before, and so it's really cool to see Hera's mother. But yeah, I love the ending, and just really enjoyed this episode.
Very good, very good. I will try to make it through my opening thoughts without going on a tangent. or a side trail, which there will be a lot of rabbit trails. I loved this episode. There was a lot of things for me to love. There was a couple of things in here that had me going, or one thing in particular that had me kind of scratch my head as to why, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But overall, man, I just loved everything about this episode. I will admit, when it opened up on Ryloth, that first opening scene, it opens up and it shows that city on the hill, and I'm sitting there going, that's Ryloth. We're on Ryloth. And then it showed Freon Ta and then Syndulla, and I'm like, oh Lord, that's Cham Syndulla. And I started to freak out at that moment because I know who's around. And then we meet his wife, and I'm like, that's Hera's mom. Oh my gosh, there's Hera's mom and dad. We're going to see Hera. Oh my Lord, if we see Hera, we're going to see Chopper. Oh, and I started getting all shaky and excited. I couldn't sit on the couch anymore. I was standing up, kind of pacing the floor, watching the episode, and Hera's name gets mentioned, and I squealed, and then it cuts to the scene where we're sitting there at the rock, and all of a sudden you see that little sensor pop up above the rock and spin around, and I'm like, it's Chopper. And I'm not lying. That's probably exactly how I sounded too. I lost my ever-loving mind. I literally had to go back and watch the episode a second time because once that beautiful astromech showed up on screen, that's all I could remember after the episode. The credits were rolling, and I'm looking at it going, Chopper. And which I found it ironic too. Here's rabbit hole number one. And the credits, Chopper was played by himself again, and not by Dave Filoni, who we all know does the voice of it. And they announced at the end of Rebels. So a little side note, Chopper played himself in this. Anywho, back to the initial reactions at hand. I loved the episode. Need to say, there was everything about this I love. Seeing Hera as a little girl, seeing her passion for flying and wanting to fly at this young age. It makes you understand why she became such an incredible pilot to begin with. And she's just her passion for it. And of course, Chopper being in it too made it extra special for me. And seeing the deviousness of the Empire and of Rampart, and even Crosshair at this point. These are two people that, we haven't seen a lot of, but are pretty much billed as the bad guys. And we haven't seen a lot of them, as much as I thought we should see a bad guy. But they definitely made their evilness known in this episode. So great. I loved it. Chopper was in it. So yeah. So back on track here. Let's get into our talking points here, my friend. We're on Ryloth, man. Did you ever think we'd be back on Ryloth this soon?
No. And in fact, I loved how you said when you looked at the opening scene, I didn't put it together when I first saw, kind of that mountain structure and then kind of the wrapping around of the kind of built-in structures in the mountain. But tonight, before we recorded, I thought, let me pop it back on. I want to watch it one more time. And there's that overhead shot, and I'm like, wait, that, I didn't pick it up the first two times I had watched, but there's that bridge that we see in the end of season 1 of the Clone Wars, the last 3 episodes, or 2 or 3 episodes, Liberty on Ryloth and all that, the Innocence of Ryloth, all that. Mm-hmm. And of course, we see Mace Windu getting across that. And so again, I just pick stuff up the more times I watch these episodes. I'm like, yes, of course, look at that. Just a different angle on that bridge that spans that opening. So when people watch it again, they can see that. And so, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, and they're back. And of course, I love seeing Sham Syndulla and Gobi Glee, hearing Corey Burton's voice. But being back there, it's a nice contrast to the Separatists, right, in the previous episode, and how they're having the clankers, and now here's we're on Ryloth, and they were working with the clones, and I enjoyed it because I've enjoyed those characters before, and they were really introduced to us, Ryloth and Cham and all those guys, really early in the Clone Wars series, which of course you and I love. So I was really glad we were back.
Oh, I was too. And you're exactly right with that opening scene, when that's what gave it away for me. Is I'm looking at that building and that bridge and everything, and I'm like, and that's how I immediately recognized it as Ryloth, because I remember the episodes with Windu trying to get across that bridge to drive out the Separatists, and the Techno Union leader was there. I'm blanking on his name.
Wat
Tambor, yes. He was there, and he was evacuating all the treasure before he left. And he's being told to leave it, but he's still gathering it. I think he actually even made off with the Ark of the Covenant in that episode.
That was the Easter egg. Yes. I mean, if you imagine the people of Ryloth had the Ark of the Covenant.
They had it till the droids took it away.
That's right.
At least they were smart enough not to open it, or
exactly.
Would have ended the Clone Wars real quick.
Yes.
But a little Indiana Jones humor there. But yeah, it was great being back. And even more is we merged Clone Wars and Rebels even further. Is we see that city from Clone Wars, then we end up at the Syndulla homestead. And I loved being at the Syndulla homestead with Hera as a child. And there was no mistaking it. We were there a couple times during Rebels. There's no mistaking the Syndulla homestead. That Y-Wing crashed in the yard, in the front yard where Hera pulled Chopper from. And that's how she got him. So there's history there, and now we've taken 2 episodes from 2 different series and merged them and connected them through a 3rd series by having them both in the same thing. I thought that was phenomenal.
Absolutely, yes. I love seeing the downed Y-Wing, seeing it behind Hera and her mother as they were speaking, and of course I was thinking back to Rebels when you and I covered that, and I think what Hera tells the story, right? I believe it's Hera of how that's how she met Chopper, was that crash. And so when I saw that in there, I thought, oh, so neat, the continuity and just kind of getting some different angles on it. And then, being inside the home again and recognizing it from Rebels. So very nice continuity. And again, just a lot of fun for you and me because we really, well, it was the first thing really I covered with you.
Yeah.
In terms of Star Wars animation and podcasting, it was covering Rebels with you. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I believe that episode of Rebels was Hera's Heroes, because that's also where the Ghost Crew met Thrawn for the first time. He had been in a previous episode, but it was the first one-on-one encounter with them at that point. And Hera does tell Ezra, who's undercover as a stormtrooper, a scout trooper, the story as to what happened in with Chopper and how he was shot down during the Clone Wars, and she pulled him from the wreckage and pieced him back together, and that it's pretty much a emotional spot for him, which is really, we always knew he had an attitude, but it was really probably the first time we had seen him with that much of an emotional connection to something, which was awesome. And I'm getting off on Rebels. I'm not talking Bad Batch. We need to talk Bad Batch. One thing that was unique about this episode that we had not seen before was Hera's mom. We know from Rebels that she had died when she was a kid, but we actually get to see Eleni in this episode. We see her with Hera. We see her with Cham. We see her at the end of the episode taken into custody by the Imperials. So there's a lot of turmoil in this, and a lot of feeling because, we don't speculate or anything, but we know at some point she dies. We don't know how, we don't know why, but this could be part of it. Who knows? But I love the fact that we got to see her and how much she looked like Hera.
Yes. I like that. I like that a lot in terms of the coloring, the shape of the face, the eyes. Yes. So well done. So well done.
Oh, it was awesome to see that. The design and the Leiku and everything they just went together so well. And in the way they animated her, there was a look that she gave when they were at I can't remember if it was at the homestead or at the beginning at the
at the speech.
That she just turns and shoots somebody a look, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a Hera look. I've seen her give that to Kanan. I know I saw her give it to Lando. So
well, she does. She gives it to Rampart after he says, "It's a shame that your daughter Hera isn't here to see this." And then he walks by, and then you see her give the look as Rampart walks away from her.
And it was it's the similarities between the two is so much. This is a character because of how well we know Hera, this is a character I would like to see explored more, because I would like to see how much of her we've already seen some expressions, and I would like to see what more of her personality Hera got. I think that would just be a fun exploration at that point. So one thing I do want to touch on, and I mentioned this during my opening blabber. It really wasn't opening thoughts. It was really more of an opening blabber of chopper vomit. I'm sorry, that's what it was. I went off on chopper. So anyway, we had 30 seconds of the Bad Batch in an in a TV show about the Bad Batch.
Right. Right.
Did you have a problem with that?
Well, it's interesting. When you cover any series, right? And I do listen to other podcasts and some coverage of it, of the Bad Batch and of course the Clone Wars season 7. It is interesting to get different takes on what people think. Is there too much Bad Batch? Is there not enough Bad Batch? How many guest appearances do you have? Do you pull from other shows? This was the talk with The Mandalorian. Is it going to be about The Mandalorian, or is it going to be about, everybody else but The Mandalorian? That's always the challenge, right? And, wanting shows to stand on its own, and so on and so forth. And for me, it didn't bother me at all. I mean, I'm watching it. It's, a big universe, and they're showing what's going on. And this is when the Bad Batch is dealing with things. I love the characters from Ryloth, and I loved, seeing, the Bad Batch, flying on the Marauder and landing in that beautiful setting and seeing them with the stars behind them and seeing them a bit. And I love the interactions between Omega and Hera, and I didn't have a problem with it at all. We're seeing a lot of them, and this was a nice coverage of what's going on, I think, in the post-Order 66 time period. So no, I didn't have an issue with it at all. So what about you, buddy?
Do I have a problem with it? Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. No, for the fact that I got, 24, 20, however long it was, 25, 26 minutes of Chopper. So I will never, ever complain about that. That was 20, 25, 26 minutes more than I ever dreamed I would get again. So my expectations for the episode have already been beyond exceeded. So no worries there. But the fact that we have a show called The Bad Batch that's supposed to be following and telling the story about the Bad Batch, about these clones, and they were in it for a whole whopping 30 seconds in a very minor role, when there's only, this was episode 11, so there are only 5 episodes left in the season. I don't know if I have a slight issue with that, because I will say this. I know part 2 is coming up. We know that for a fact. Matter of fact, the next episode, I actually found a list of episode titles I didn't know was out there, and I can't confirm it. They're legit, but they're from a reputable source that says the next episode is called Rescue on Rylop. So obviously I got a feeling they're coming in and they're going to rescue Cham, and hopefully Alani too, but we'll see what happens. But the fact that they weren't in it does bother me, because yes, we had a moment in that 30 seconds they were on screen of time with there was another minute between Omega and Hera as they got to know each other and they made a connection and a friendship. Even Hunter looks at her and says, "Made a friend," and that's pretty much it. I just don't. I don't know. I have an issue with them not being in it more. And now all of that could change when we see the part 2 on Friday, but so I may come back next week and be like, hey, I said I had an issue with it last week. I don't this week. That it's tangent on what happens in part 2, but yes, right now I do struggle with the fact that they were in it 30 seconds. It's probably more of a minute, but 30 seconds to a minute of the Bad Batch in the Bad Batch series. And even during other shows, I mean, like even Rebels and Resistance and Clone Wars and correct me if I'm wrong, even Mandalorian, I don't remember the start. I mean, Clone Wars is different because it's not just following the story of Ahsoka and Obi-Wan and Anakin. It's following all the clones as well. So there were whole episodes where we didn't see Obi-Wan or Ahsoka or anybody like that because we were following clones. But there wasn't an episode that went by in Rebels we didn't see a member of the Ghost Crew. There wasn't an episode of Resistance that went by we didn't see members of Team Fireball. There wasn't an episode that wasn't the story wasn't about them. The story that we didn't, not that we didn't see a member, we saw the member, but the story was built around them. This story was not built around Hunter, Wrecker, Omega, Tech, or Echo. Oh wait, I'm missing one. No, I'm not. Okay. Felt like I was, but the story wasn't built around them, and I have an issue with that.
No, fair enough. I hear you. In Filoni, I trust. So I do think next episode we'll be pleasantly surprised with our Bad Batchers and their role in helping out the Syndulas. So
absolutely, I'm sure we will. And I mean, it was great. So
yeah.
Overall, it was still a great episode. So Chopper was in it.
Aaron, what did you think about Chopper being in this episode?
It brought a tear to my eye. It brought a lot of tears to my eyes. I think I wept for joy. And now I'm Irish. No, I can't even go into that. I will talk for an hour on my feelings on that. But let's just say I was ecstatic. I was overjoyed. And I loved every moment.
Well, here's something that I wanted to bring up along with, you mentioned the voice of Chopper, and we do know in the very last episode of Rebels, they did finally share with us that the voice of Chopper was Dave Filoni. When I was watching this episode the first time, definitely I'm like, I don't think they got Vanessa Marshall back. And I have a pretty keen ear. I'm like, I don't think they got her back for the young Hera Syndulla. And then I listened a second time. Of course, I saw the credits. And I'm like, gosh, it is her. And I listened a second time and then again. And, I was wondering if they helped her voice sound younger in a similar way with the same technology that they used to make Mark Hamill's voice sound younger in the season finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian. I mean, it's one thing to, when you listen to hear someone they sound a little older, a little younger. Even Ashley Eckstein has talked extensively about that as Ahsoka matured and stuff, and how she changed the voice. But this definitely sounded like Vanessa Marshall had help. Maybe she didn't. What do you think, buddy? Do you think she had some help with that, or like Mark Hamill did, or no?
That's hard to say. Vanessa is such a talented voice actress. Who really knows at this point? It would be interesting to find out. I would have no problem if if they did assist with some voice modulation to make her sound younger. I'd have no problem with that. I was just excited to have Vanessa Marshall back in Star Wars. She is such an awesome person, and I've had the blessing of meeting her several times throughout the years. A couple times at Star Wars weekends. Saw her again at Star Wars Celebration, and it was a lot of fun. She's just such an awesome person to talk to. So having her back in the Star Wars fold per se was just incredible. So yeah, either way, I wouldn't have an issue if she needed help. But I think if the technology's there and you can't do it on your own, might as well. So
yeah.
Especially if that keeps you doing the voice.
No question.
So one thing I do want to talk about before we wrap up our discussion on Devil's Deal is one person we have not talked about. And that is the new clone captain that we met in this episode, Hauser. Of course, he resembles more of the clones that we saw during Clone Wars. He's got that unique personality. He's got the unique haircut. He's one of the few clones we've seen take his helmet off in this series, which I found unique. And he actually portrayed some interesting dynamics in this episode. After Order 66, we see a lot of the clones, they're a lot gruffer. They're a lot more direct. Everything has been good soldiers follow orders, good soldiers. Ever since Order 66, every clone has been good soldiers follow orders type of mentality. But we don't get that from Hauser. Matter of fact, he actually defends little Hera Syndulla to Rampart about her only being a child. When he catches her in a place she's not supposed to be, he takes her, back home to Cham, and obviously he has a relationship with Cham, and he's like, look, she was in a restricted area. We're not reporting it this time, but you got to make sure she doesn't go back. He's cutting her a break, not the type of, actions we would see from clones that we've seen so far from clones after 66, unless there was an issue with their chip. Not saying he had an issue with this chip. There's he could have, he could not, or it just could have been the fact that there were no Jedi around to make him feel gruff. Who knows? But he is a lot more human, I would say, and a lot more caring and compassionate than some of the other clones we've seen in this series. What were your thoughts on Captain Hauser?
Interesting, very interesting character, and I'm with you on that. And something I thought about as I watched the episode several times is they not only make him stand out, like you were mentioning, buddy, with his interactions and his caring and stepping up and defending Hera, but they show it in his hair. We see that, and like you said, they have him take the helmet off. But also, he has color. You and I have watched all these episodes since, Order 66 in the season and series premiere. But, you just don't see any of them. You see them all in white, and he has coloration all over his armor. So clearly the writers and the animators and the creatives want all of us, including young kids, to notice that and say, wait, there's something different about this clone. And like you said, I watched it. I wondered, wait, is he, did it not fire off? We saw with the Bad Batch, it kind of partially worked in Crosshair, but not in the other clones until, Wrecker had his head bonked enough. But again, go back to season 6 of the Clone Wars. We see, is it Tup? Is it Tup who has it misfire early?
Yep.
Him. So clearly there's issues with chips. And so, I wonder what's going on there.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. And just, come another rabbit hole. Did you notice how ever since Wrecker got the chip removed, he's not hitting his head on stuff now?
Right. They telegraph that. That's just like with the color on Hauser's, clone trooper. They're just telegraphing this. I'm curious to see, and like you said, speculation that, okay, just people love me anyways, the role he'll play in this next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps with the Bad Batch rescuing the Syndulas. So, but yes, very well said. Wrecker's not hitting his head anymore.
Yeah.
Amazingly, yes.
That kind of caught me. You brought it up, and I'm like, you know what? Now that you mention it, I don't think I've seen him bonk his head anymore. And have I mentioned Shoppers in this episode?
He's in it.
Squirrel.
Squirrel.
Squirrel. So, all right. Well, anything else from Devil's Deal that you want to hit on, David?
Only one thing.
Yes.
There's a bit of confusion for me of the ending when Rampart nods, Crosshair shoots Orn Frita, but they don't show him clearly dead. Rampart says that we're going to accuse the Syndulas of the attempted assassination of Orn Frita. That was a little confusing to me there at the end. So I was just going to ask you when we were recording, do you think, is he dead, or is this more something to make the people of Ryloth not like the Syndulas, Cham Syndulla and stuff like that, but Orn Frita is still alive? What do you think?
Oh, Frita is still alive. Without a doubt, Frita is still alive.
Okay.
They are. It's a political ploy. They're framing the Syndulas for an attempted assassination of Orn Frita to try to, one, elevate Frita in the eyes of the people and provide disgust of the Syndulas in the eyes of the people, so they can have somebody in charge who is easy to manipulate, because they know they cannot manipulate Cham Syndulla. But Orn Free-Taa, if you've watched the Clone Wars and you've watched if you watch the Clone Wars, you know he is very wishy-washy. Whatever way the water flows is the way he's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, the Empire's in charge. He's going to flow with the Empire. So, and Cham just wants what's best. And I think I heard somebody put it quite uniquely. Cham wants what's best for the people of Ryloth, whereas Orn Free-Taa wants what's best for him.
Yeah. Well, and there is that part where you see Hauser look up, kind of to where, like, I don't know if he sees Crosshair or if he thinks that it's, one of Syndulla's freedom fighters, but then you hear Rampart say to Cham Syndulla, thank you for playing your role. Or does he say it to him or to Orn Free-Taa? Thank you, Senator, for playing your role. I got to watch it again. But I will say this. Phil Lamar plays Orn Free-Taa. You and I got to meet him and get his autograph back at Central Florida Comic-Con in 2019. So it was cool to hear Phil Lamar back in Star Wars voice acting again. So there you go.
Exactly. So very good. Very fun. Great episode. Final thoughts on this episode? Before I do, did I tell you Chopper was in it?
That's probably all, right? That's all of your final thoughts. That's it.
So let's go ahead and do my final thoughts. My final thoughts. Chopper was in the episode, which made it the greatest thing in the world for me. Hera was in it too, which made it even better. She was like the icing on the cake, but Chopper was there. No, this was a great story. It was a fun story. Like I said, I did have some issues with the Bad Batch not being in it for more than 30 seconds. But the story was great. We got to see backstory on Hera. We got to see backstory on her parents. We got to see backstory on Ryloth, on how they become, what we're seeing is essentially the occupation of Ryloth by the Imperials, and how it started. And I like that we're seeing that, because we know they were occupied during the Clone Wars. We know they were occupied during Rebels. And now we're seeing the transition. They got their freedom during the Clone Wars, and now they're about to lose their freedom here go in the Bad Batch because they had no freedom during Rebels. So seeing this seeing the story is fun. It's a great story. And I enjoyed it. Chopper was in it, and it was just a lot of great things all wrapped into one. Seeing Hera's passion for flying, seeing her interact with Omega for the minute 60 seconds that she did, seeing Cham meeting Hera's mom, meeting Hauser, which it was unique, seeing more of Crosshair and Rampart in a diabolical scheme. It was all made for a great episode. So personally, I loved it. David, how about you?
Nice. Yeah. And ditto everything you said. I agree with all that. And what I put in the show notes, it's kind of cool because I can kind of do something a little bit different, because I agree with everything you said. And I mentioned this in my initial comments, that I would talk a bit more about this animation. And, as I was watching this episode, after watching Common Ground and how beautiful that animation was, I said to myself, okay, you're just showing off now. And what I mean is, the creators of the show, like Joel Aaron and Keith Kellogg, they're just taking the animation and lighting to another level. And Joel Aaron is the one who really does the lighting. Keith Kellogg heads up that whole animation aspect of it. There's several examples. Hera, when she goes with Gobi and they land on that moon near Ryloth, are you kidding me? It's gorgeous. Looking back at Ryloth, again, seeing the Marauder land, looking at the starfield behind the Bad Batch, I'm like, and they have their helmets on. I'm like, this is so beautiful, so cool. The clone turbo tank from episode 3, that thing comes around the corner, and the lighting that they have on that thing, it looked real. The bark speeders, they looked and sounded just like in episode 3 that we see. We see them shoot down. Is it? Oh gosh. I want to say. I'm thinking Stellan Geos, but I just finished listening to the Rising Storm. It's a Thalothian, right? And of course, there's a Thalothian in the Rising Storm. But it's I'm trying to see her. She gets shot down by two bark speeders. They slow down and they shoot her. I'm blocking on the name right now, but
I'm blocking on it too. All right, help you out.
I can see her right now, but that's okay. But the bark speeders in that, like I said in episode 3, they're so cool, and you see them here and the way that they sound, it's just awesome. I put in the notes, just great job, David W. Collins, and the sound effects he's putting in there. What else? When they return back to Ryloth, and their ship's coming around a huge embankment of clouds, and I do believe, because Joel Aaron on his Twitter feed says, hey, in this episode, can you pick out a shot that is from a photo that I took? And it was years ago, and he took it himself, and I think it is that bank of clouds, because when I look at it again, it doesn't look, animated like some of the other scenes, but it's just this gorgeous shot of the ship coming back. And then the ones after that, the ship comes down and Crosshair shoots it and it comes down and stuff like that, but just beautiful. So again, Joel Aaron, Keith Kellogg, David W. Collins, incredible stuff. Again, beyond the animation and the lighting, going back to what Aaron said, I really enjoyed seeing Hera, Chopper, Cham, Gobi. I really like the development of Rampart. They had him, kind of doing some looks and the way he talked, and really developing him as a, more as a cold and calculated character. And I figured they would be doing that here pretty soon. And of course, the overall story, really enjoyed it.
Very good. Very good. And the character you're looking for is named Stas Ali.
Thank you. And I can see her in the, the visual dictionaries that I have up there. I didn't grab it. Yes, Stas Ali. So yes, she's shot down by clone troopers on bark speeders, I believe, right?
Yep, on Seleucami.
On Seleucami. Jeez, it's just so sad when I see that scene, but there you go.
It's sad?
Uh-oh.
Is the fact that when I read her name, Stas Ali, it sounded so much like Prince Ali. I started seeing Prince Ali from Aladdin.
Yes.
But I changed the name to Stas Ali.
Yeah.
That's what's sad. That is what's sad. So, all right. So we are going to wrap things up here after, in a moment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll give you our grades for these 2 episodes. And David has an all-new psychology corner. So stay tuned. We will be back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We have just finished our discussions on Common Ground and Devil's Deal. Have I mentioned Choppers and Devil's Deal? But we are going to go ahead and let you know how we graded these episodes. Of course, we grade every episode as we review them. Just like if you were in school, you get an A, B, C, D, or F. And you, of course, get a plus or minus that, up to you. We've graded every episode. So let's start with the first episode review tonight, Common Ground. David, how did you grade that one, my friend?
Well, and I did mention this actually. I was not, you'd asked me to kind of wait till we got to the end here, and I kind of jumped ahead. But if people were listening closely, they heard that, I'd initially graded this episode as a B because I was comparing it to the previous 2, which had, Cad Bane and Fennec Shan and the action from those episodes. Even, Crosshair getting burned and in the back of that big starship and stuff like that. But after recording that episode with Dan Zayer and Tom Gross from Coffee with Kenobi, Tom did a really good job of really changing my mind. And I changed the grade from a B to an A- because of some of the stuff at the very end between Wrecker and Hunter and Omega. So A- for me on Common Ground.
Very good. Very good. For Common Ground, I actually gave that one an A minus as well. I love the character development, the story. I thought it was just phenomenal. It was a great character piece, like I said earlier. So I gave that one an A minus. So how about Devil's Deal? How would you grade Chopper's episode?
This is a no-brainer. It's an A. I love it. I love Rebels. I love the series. I love the characters, and I love Chop. I love Hera. Obviously, Kanan, and oh my God, Zeb, and all of them. And so no question. And I love this story. It's not, again, I love seeing Ryloth and all of the heroes that you and I cheered for before. However, it's not just that; it's the story, and I'm intrigued with Hauser and some of the stuff that Orn Free Ta is doing, and Rampart. So overall, yeah, this was not difficult to grade this one for me. Anyways, it's an A.
Very good. Very good. It's an A for you. For me, it's an A plus 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 plus. No, just kidding. No, this was a great episode. I loved it. Did I mention Chopper was in it? I have to give it Devil's Deal. I'm giving it an A. Even though Chopper was in it, it didn't hit A plus material for me yet. But it was definitely an easy A for me. So I agree with you there. It was definitely an A. So all right. So David, I believe it's time for an all-new Psychology Corner.
All right, people. I know they've been listening a long time. If you're with us through the whole thing here, thank you for listening to our coverage of 2 episodes instead of 1. I'm going to go through this. I put out on social media that I was going to continue, really sharing psychology here and helping to bring some ease, help people to relax themselves and deal with stress, depression, and anxiety. So again, quick recap. In the last episode, I spoke about some really straightforward techniques from The Jedi Mind, right, by author Emmy Ratcliffe. And I mentioned several techniques to help people relax and be more calm. And so, stress is there every day. So it's good to have some quick ways to help decrease stress. And that's why I wanted to share it. However, I know that it's not just quick and easy steps. There's more in-depth kind of stuff that we can cover as well. So what I'm going to do is go over some more techniques, but these take a little bit longer to explain. Now, listen, before I go on, I've been thinking about this over the last several psychology corners, but this is a good spot to remind people that my psychology corners are not full-fledged therapy. And I do need to say that because, when I do full-fledged therapy, those sessions, depending on the clients and the needs, are 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour. And most of them are between 45 minutes to an hour. You do an intake evaluation, and there's the understanding that my client and I are working together in a therapeutic relationship. And that's not what's going on here. I'm trying to share psychology. I would always encourage people to do counseling, to do therapy, and do it with someone who is well trained and has, a master's degree or a PhD. It could be social workers, psychologists, licensed mental health counselors, but that's actual therapy. But I just needed to do that, and I meant to do that, a while ago. But I thought, you know what, I need to put that in there. So now what I want to teach everyone tonight to help with stress, depression, and anxiety is I want to explain what's called Pivot 1 or diffusion from ACT, And ACT is acceptance and commitment therapy. And you might recall from the last session that the techniques I went over from the Jedi Mind were from what's called Pivot 4, which is presence or mindfulness, And so I'm kind of doing a different pivot within ACT. Again, last episode people listened to was Pivot 4, presence or mindfulness techniques, and this is called Pivot 1 or diffusion techniques. So what I would say is this, to help people understand what that is. A major problem with stress, depression, and anxiety is that we spend too much time engaging with those kinds of thoughts, stress thoughts, depressed thoughts, anxious thoughts. And as humans, our brains are always trying to figure out, okay, that's our problem solving brain. They're always trying to figure things out, our brains, and that can be okay. However, when it comes to stressful thoughts, depressed and anxious thoughts, we do not want to engage with those thoughts for too long, because we end up ruminating on them for way too long. And again, that results in increased stress, depression, anxiety. Again, the whole point of doing the psychology corners is not only to help people become good psychologists, but to learn some techniques to decrease those things. So I want to share with our listeners, an old saying. And I don't, I've talked to, like I've said before, many clients over the years. And some have known this saying, some haven't heard it. But it's called "What wolf grows?" or "What animal grows?" And the answer is the one you feed. And in this case, we do not want to feed stressful, depressed, and anxious thoughts. They'll just grow. And that's what's happened to, millions of people across this country over the years. They've never learned how to address these thoughts. They have fed these thoughts, when their head hits the pillow or even across the course of the day. So, for example, a lot of insomnia can be explained by people engaging and ruminating about anxious thoughts when people are trying to get to sleep, or when people get up to go to the bathroom or get a drink or whatever, and they lay back down and their head starts ruminating about anxious thoughts, okay? So ultimately, how do we do diffusion and not let those negative thoughts fuse with our conscious thoughts, right? That's what we want. We don't want fusion, which is our brain fusing and sticking with these depressed, anxious, depressed thoughts, stressed, anxious, depressed thoughts. We want to diffuse. And so what I'll do here is share two diffusion techniques. One is called Leaves on a Stream, and the other one is called Give Your Mind a Name. So in Leaves on a Stream, what I ask clients to do is to visualize themselves by a calm stream. They're by themselves, and they're noticing their thoughts. And instead of engaging or ruminating on a depressed, anxious, or stressful thought, I encourage them to put that thought on a leaf and let it flow away from them. Now look, I've learned a lot from my clients over the years. Sometimes that metaphor works for them, and they get those thoughts on leaves and they get them away from them. Sometimes my clients will say, look, Dave, these depressed, anxious, stressful thoughts are coming at me too fast. And so the metaphor that I've talked about with a lot of clients is visualize putting your thoughts on a conveyor belt and getting them away from you. And then I've had clients say, look, I've had thoughts, depressed, anxious, yes, angry and stressful thoughts come at them so fast that the metaphor of leaves or the metaphor of a conveyor belt doesn't work. I've had them say, like, I visualize standing by traffic, they say, in Detroit, in Miami, in New York City, and they visualize their thoughts as sticky, and they're throwing them against the sides of cars, and those cars are whooshing away. Like I said, some people say, no, that's not relaxing enough for me. I have other clients say, no, I need a metaphor like that to get these thoughts away. I give those three different metaphors just to let our listeners let them know you can create your own metaphor, whatever works for you. But those are three different ones for kind of three different speeds at which these thoughts come at you. Now, look, it takes practice. But when clients practice these and get these thoughts away from them, they are less depressed. They're less anxious. All right, they're less stressed. But I would encourage them to do it. Now, another one is called Give Your Mind a Name. Now, Dr. Stephen Hayes, who created ACT, he is a psychologist and 72 years old at this time. He talks about this in a really neat way. He has given his mind the name George. I've had clients come up with every different kind of name for their mind. The whole point is to get some distance between that mind that wants to shoot a lot of anxious, depressed, and stressful thoughts in there. We want distance from that. In fact, Hayes calls the mind, a big part of it, he calls it the internal dictator. So he's wanting everyone, including our listeners, me, you, Aaron, to get that internal dictator at a distance and not ruling the roost, not to be fused with other parts of our brain and our thoughts. We want some distance there, okay? So again, that takes this. One of the things that Dr. Hayes says he does when his internal dictator or George starts to chatter with depressed, anxious, and angry thoughts, what he does is he says this: thanks, George, for the help. I've got this. And then, of course, his brain doesn't want to turn off. And he says, no, George, I got this. I got this. Thanks for the help. I've got this. So those are just two of many diffusion techniques. I just want to share those with our clients tonight. Again, they can look up more of this if they want to under, acceptance and commitment therapy. If you go to, I think it's www.stephenhayes.com, it'll take you to his website, and I've been there and explored it. Really cool stuff. You can learn a lot about the different pivots. All of the pivots are to try to psychological rigidity to psychological flexibility. And to that end, in our next episode, what I'll do is, again, continue to help our listeners with stress, depression, and anxiety with what's called Pivot 3, or acceptance. And it is also very critical in helping people reduce stress and suffering. And I'll help people understand that in our Psychology Corner next episode. So there you go, Aaron.
Very good. Very good. Love it. Always learn so much during your Psychology Corners, and I know a lot of people do, so we appreciate you sharing that. Let us know what you thought about the this week's Psychology Corner. You can, of course, hit us up on any of our social media, SW Reactions on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram, or SW Reactions Pod on Twitter, or you can email us, show@starwarsreactions.com, and let us know what you think of the Psychology Corner, of the recent episode, of either of the episodes we have reviewed tonight, or just to talk Star Wars in general. It doesn't matter. If you want to talk Star Wars more, or even more about the Psychology Corner with David, my friend, how would they go about doing that with you?
Yeah. As always, I'm on Twitter at David_Modders. There is an S on the end, so it's MODDERS. Of course, like Aaron was mentioning, there are other email ways to do it, especially if you want to write something longer. Mine is david@starwarsreactions.com. And I love what Aaron said. What are your thoughts about the Psychology Corner? Our thoughts on those two episodes. I'd be curious to see what all of you think. And then I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that I just got on Instagram. I was kind of late to the party. Aaron has been all over it, and he's done it for Star Wars Reactions, and I appreciate him doing that. And so what I'm going to try to do is be posting more there. And I believe, Aaron, people can just if they go to Instagram and search David Modders, there I am. And so am I saying that right? I believe it is, right?
Yeah.
You just put the name, right? Because with Twitter, it's at David_Modders. But yeah.
They can actually at you as well. So,
they can. Oh,
yeah. Yours is at David Modders is what it is. So.
Okay, sorry about that. My dogs are barking in the back. They were quiet all night.
Oh, they're fine. No worries. They're saying it's time to go to bed, Dad.
That's right.
If you want to talk more Star Wars with me, you can hit me up on social media. My personal Twitter is TAHarris121079, or of course, email me, Aaron@StarWarsReactions.com. David, my friend, this has been awesome as always.
Absolutely, buddy. Love recording with you. I feel really good that we got caught up on the episodes, and hopefully people really enjoyed the Psychology Corner, that it'll help them, and they just need to know more's coming, and take whatever they like and use it to their benefit.
Absolutely. We do appreciate y'all sticking with us. I know it's a longer episode than normal, so we thank you. We appreciate it even more. But y'all are the best. We appreciate each and every one of you. We are thankful and pray for y'all daily. We hope the best for you. Remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If
If you would like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
By the way, did I mention Chopper was in the episode?